I watched Chris Williamson, and he has his ex gang member Johnny Chang, and he's going through his whole thing until he goes to religion. He goes to Christianity, and I think that was like a very like a powerful story that he was telling, because shit, all that shit that was happening to him, but then he finally finds God, and everything going the way it has gone for him, where he's now popular and he's a Christian person speaking, the word, Lord's word. But he was saying things. I'm like, I'm not, I'm not gonna be like here, like, oh, let's go Christianity. I'm more or less of, there's things he said that I feel like what religion did is, any religion. What religion does is make the woo woo more acceptable. So, scientists would say, ghosts doesn't exist because there's no proof, right? Until you have proof ghosts exist, then they're like, okay, woo woo is no longer woo woo. Woo woo is now scientific truth. And for me, so scientists and me, I'm like, I ghosts are real cool. It don't fit in the numbers or whatever the case may be, but they're real. But the scientists is like, nah, they're not real because there's no proof. Yes, there's like a weird thing that's happening, but that's explainable. And I think what religion is that, in the sense that religion is science, and me, who believes in the woo woo, is either the consciousness or the universe. And I think, because he's talking about how once he let go of the wheel and let God take over, things started to happen in a positive way. And I've been I've been trying to figure out, maybe I should listen more to these guts, these little instincts that we call, that are popping in and out, right? There's something I it's it's a weird thing, because I'm trying to think, how was I able to see it? And the only way I would say this is, the only time I had an out of body experience where you're able to see yourself outside of your body. The only time I had that was when I was a kid. I don't know how old I was, but I know I was a kid. My cousin was in the car with my sister, and I was on the side of the house. No, I was like at the where the rocks, because it's like we have a little the trailer home we lived in. There was like a little parking spot, and that we get to park by the house, by the trailer. And I was on the rocks jumping like a dummy, and he hits me. He had, he didn't do it on purpose. He's still having, trouble. No, he's still learning how to drive and stuff like that, right? So when he went up the curve to go into the driveway, the car turned and he hit me. So I was under the car as he, and remember, these cars back in the day, like in the 2000s, 1990s, 1980s, these cars were fucking metal. So when you get hit by that shit, you're gonna get hit by that shit. Either way, I got hit by it. I was under the car, and I dug myself out of it, and I ran inside the house crying. Then that's when I remember going to my mom's arms, and I remember seeing myself like recall. That's the only time I ever experienced that, right? That I know of, or I remember vividly. The other one, I just there's things that are happening that sometimes I'm just questioning, and like, did that really happen? And this is one of those cases where I was like, something happened. Recall. I just remember when I knew this person went in the direction I was at when I ran the direction I ran from. So I knew that person went in that direction. The only difference was I ran away from there, I went into the bathroom, and then after I went into the bathroom, I went into the back of the house of my work area. But for some reason, as this was happening or whatever, I saw something. And I was witnessing something happening, and I just, from a different perspective that I couldn't see, because when I ran, I had my head down. The only reason why I knew this person was going in that direction because I think I saw him as my head was down. At least as I remember, because so I just remember seeing this person and stuff like that in this position I was never in, and and maybe I needed to see that so I know not to fuck with that person anymore. Because I'm like, maybe that's a recall, but that's the there's this other thing that happened too that I can't, like, there's things that one I won't really talk about because that one was kind of weird because it was like I just remember I just thought that how stupid it was. That I was thinking that was a possibility, and then all of a sudden something happened to another person. I'm like, either way, as this person was talking about how things were happening, and once he listened to the pastor stuff like that, or let God take the wheel or whatever the case he might have explained. I really I think religion is science, as in woo woo is the crazy stuff. It's not. It's religion. It's more palatable to believe in religion, to get to the God, and to believe if you follow His word or you follow this woo woo, the instinct feeling, the gut feeling, the out of body experience feeling, everything that's not explainable but only explainable for God, or in this sense science. No, in this sense God, but we're using God and science interchangeably because those things need this thing to be more believable than gut feeling instincts we call. And I think maybe that's what religion is. Religion is science. So it's more easier to believe in these things than just say without it. And without it, you're not gonna take it for what it is and stuff like that. I was just listening to him. Like when he was saying the things he was saying, I was like, that makes perfect sense. From at least for me, I think I did I mentioned this before. I was cleaning the floor on my I was on the floor in my work area closet, cleaning the area, making it look nice. And I just remember hearing this squeaky sound, thought it was a rat, wasn't a rat. Went home, my sister's like, yeah, we had to leave the area because there was rats inside there and we don't want to be in there. And I in the future thing too, I think because he said that his mother was like, you're gonna be a gospel person, the world's famous gospel person, um and so forth, right? And he, at the time he was a recall, he was a, I guess he was a gangster, and no, well, he was a gangster, but he was deep in it. So for her to say that kind of was like, yeah, that's not happening. And about this thing where this podcaster, and as I say, it's that weird feeling you get when you see something or you experience something or you see somebody and you get this weird feeling like, where do I know you from? How do I? Why does this thing? As I say, it's deja vu. What's going on here? And maybe the fears that you feel will happen, and you may never know that day because no, you may never think that day will come, but it will come because Charlie is like a forcing conclusion because that's the amount of fear you have of it is because you're gonna meet that day and it's gonna scare you, and depending how that goes, you, you I guess that's you're gonna meet that point. Like in his case, I don't know if he felt that, but maybe that came to him where he felt fear of the thought of being a gospel person or whatever. Because he talked about feeling when he gets fear, he gets angry. Maybe I don't know, and I think maybe the fear you're feeling, like some women feel the fear of having kids and like I'm never gonna have kids and recall, and there's probably real fear in that, and the day comes and no longer do they feel fear because what if that fear is a fear of change? What if fear is that fear you come to the realization, okay, so we're going to use the woman. A woman will feel fear of having a baby, so she's like, I ain't gonna have a baby, like, and that gut feeling of every time she sees a video or every time a woman talks about having a baby, she gets this like this feeling in her stomach or feeling in her chest where it's like this like repulsiveness or this like sorry, ow, repulsiveness or this thing um like scared of the idea of that happening. The scared of the idea of happening, and she's living with that every time she sees it. So she runs away from it. She recall, right? She tries to avoid it, but no matter what, at some point it's gonna reveal itself, and you're gonna get that scared feeling of uh scared feeling of um having a baby and stuff like that. That's not necessarily negative. I will probably go on the negative side. It's more of a positive, but she finally has the baby, and this is where the fear finally comes to light. And that's probably your future telling you that's your future, dude. Maybe it's a part of the future that's telling you you're gonna meet that change in your life. Are you going to adapt, or are you going to keep to the same no, whatever you habits or whatever that keeps this fear in you, and just say if she doesn't, and when the baby happens, because obviously it's gonna happen. Like this is I didn't know this is a cool thing. This is about women. Uh, Psychology. Uh, a woman a woman who doesn't want a baby pretty much doesn't um if a woman says she doesn't want a baby, it's because the person she's with or the relationship she had with men. So she doesn't. So for a woman, a baby means a lot. It just doesn't mean a meaning me. It's I'm gonna be. with this thing for 9 months. This thing could possibly kill me, and not only that, I have to be with this thing for most the rest of my life. So there's a lot of consequences in that. Even though it's a beautiful gift, she has to look out for herself and understand that she has to get the right partner to make sure that goes, right. But if she doesn't, she knows she's going to be put in a very difficult spot. So when a woman says she doesn't want a baby, it is sometimes a sign that she might have not had the right kind of men come into her life and change that ideal for her, or she has somebody and no longer does she feel this feeling that she could live a life with this person with a newborn. Whereas a woman, if she, like I experienced it once because I remember hearing this person like no, but then I, I remember talking to this person who said no, I wouldn't want a baby. Then after we got more comfortable, she's like, yeah, she got comfortable with the idea with having a baby. I'm not saying I'm a good person, but it's just more or less of the idea change. You know what I'm saying? That she could see a world where that might be okay because the person she sees positivity, sees the things that for her seems like a suitable match to maybe live this life with him, but not only that, be comfortable knowing that this person could also recall. So that's the psychology, right? Um, that's what the cool thing. So if you ever you're talking to a lady and she says she doesn't want a baby, and it doesn't mean necessarily mean you, but if I was saying there's a change of that like she could think about having a baby with somebody. It could be you or somebody she's talking to that she's seeing this this possibility being more safer risk than say the past relationship she's had. So she's willing to entertain the idea more. Okay, so I would say she's gonna meet that day. She's gonna find somebody who's gonna change her mind, and then she's gonna change her mind because now she has somebody who she feels comfortable doing that. So that's why sometimes I see I think I've seen movies where they're like, or something. Or I heard people talking like, yeah, she never liked babies. Now she wants a baby. Ooh. Or like she always hated to the idea of hating getting the baby. She hated it because she didn't want a baby. Now she wants to. Ooh. And and but that's because there's a change wake up. So that's what I'm going with. And I guess I can go the other way with the negative one. Uh, Maybe with that fear and that recall, it finally materializes because that fear is your future telling you this is going to happen. Either you accept it or you go you accept it because you found somebody you could you warmed up to the idea of having a baby with, or you abort the baby, or you abort the baby and you continue to let that fear control your future, and maybe this is free will. At some point, your life is being adjusted to this, and it's like, hey, this is going to happen. Are you going to keep the baby, or are you going to weak up? If you keep the baby, yes, it's going to be a big change in your life, and that scares you, and um recall that's going to change the trajectory of your whole life, and whatever case it may be, because you don't like baby because of the bad relationships you've been in, or because you want a career and they fed you the idea that you had to have a career and to be happy and to be successful and, well, all the other shit, or whatever case it might have been, that you feel fearful of having a child. Pause. Fearful of having this child, whatever the case may be, it's gonna happen. And as I said, you got two options: you keeping the baby because you found the love that you really call, and now that change, that thing, it's more easier to go into, or do you allow that good person to slip through your hands because you don't want this baby and you aborted the baby and you continue to let that fear of recall control you, and then you have free will, but you will ultimately, you're running away from something that needs to happen. Hearing that kind of scares me, but what if that's the case? And depending, maybe you could change it, right? Okay, I'm gonna go to the negative, then I'm gonna talk about maybe you could change it. Um, um, Negative part is, uh, you want a baby and you can't have the baby. Hmm. I don't know how I'll go about that one. Cause like it's kind of like a positive one where there's no really consequences. I guess, you know, there's not really no consequences in that other than you having the baby and you have to deal with it and the person, the asshole and stuff like that, and blah 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 blah. You're trying how. I won't use that. I was gonna use the baby part and a woman wanting the baby but can't have a baby either because of medical reasons or because not no because that doesn't make sense. It's more like I'm trying to figure out that fear part, and maybe that's a foretelling of your future if you don't make the changes, right? Oh, okay, so sorry. Um, Damn. Okay, so we're gonna use the example, right? So this is the other one, okay? This is how you could change it. Okay, the fear would be in his case was he was doing, he's gang banging and he was doing all these selling drugs and shit like that, and he said that he smelled death in the air too, so that was crazy too because okay, so the fear would be, hmm, in his case the fear would have been following the mother's religion, or just following religion in general at an early age. The fear would have been doing that would create this rift against his homies, and they would make fun of him and yada yada yada, and so he kept to that. So he kept away from religion. So I'm not going to use him now. I'm going to use the idea. He kept away from religion because of that means his homies and stuff like that won't take him seriously and stuff like that, right? And the fear is he stays away from it and continues this path. You continue this path will only bring what it brings as because there's like two things that's battling. What the battling part would be the fear of joining something that would be religious and take him to a path he's more comfortable with. No, more a positive path than the path he was taking, and the fear of also being locked up and living there in prison for the rest of his life, right? And talking about comfortability, how he was comfortable with doing bad things instead of the good, and how that scared her more than the bad. He did like 13 years in prison, and all the shit he had to do. He had no fear of, but the fear of being good, it gave him a panic attack, and only until he actually stared the fear in his face did he change his future. He could have changed his future a lot sooner if he gave into his fears. Because we all have fears, right? And I'm talking about a certain fear, not like, oh, I'm scared of this or that. The fear of of a change in your life. That fear. That fear of change. Not some small change, not like, oh, I used to, wash my clothes. My you say my mom used to wash my clothes. Now I have to do it. Oh, I made the adjustment. Now it doesn't recall. I mean, the fear of, in his case, uh, forgiving or apologizing to his father who did him wrong and stuff like that, and that fear of making that thing and doing all that was, that's like, no, I would never recall. I would never do. That was more powerful. That fear when you're willing to do something that's so out of your character that you're scared to look it in the eyes. So think of that, and when you think of that, does that mean you're going to walk into it more willingly and more comfortable with the idea now, or if you're willing to accept it and willing to take your own path, but accepting it, that you're willing to create your own path, does that make you a god? That you're willing to disobey the path that's given to you? Because I think these paths that we are given, these paths are probably the best paths for us. And so just say, okay, we're using that woman thing, baby, fearful. She sees things about babies and how people look and how, Joyce, and she gets this weird feeling of this anxiety, fear. I just need to know. There's people who feel like that. We all have that feeling. Whatever the fuck it is, we have that, right? And so she's not the fear of just like, oh, I'm gonna get hit. Oh, I'm gonna no, that fear of a sudden change in your life that you didn't think was possible, because whatever outcomes from the outside world has adjusted your mind to fear this thing is eating you alive every time you see it, right? And and this is you saying that, baby, boom, boom, boom. I don't like it. Makes me feel weird and shit like that. Okay, what if right there you start seeing it, you start recall, and you accept it, and both sides. You accept it in the side where you take it, and you accept the side that you're not going to take it. And I think this is the God, and this is the controlled path, right? So she sees it, negative things, negative feelings, negative feelings, negative feelings. Then she's like, okay, fine. I'm gonna be okay with that idea because I'm gonna find that right man who's gonna recall, and I'm gonna be vigilant in making sure I catch anything that this guy might be doing that might be some bullshit recall. But I'm gonna accept the idea and I'm gonna go with this. And she gets it, and she gets the baby, knowing this day was gonna come. She accepts it, and obviously this is what happens after would be she did everything right. She followed the signs. This guy was good, and then boom, they start bumping it, and boom, pops a baby. And guess what? Solid. They're solid for years to come. However long, 10, 20, 30, either way, they're fucking solid. And either they die happy or they split or they're like, indifferent with each other. But they're still with each other. And this other one, she accepts that it's gonna happen, but ultimately she still wants a career. She still wants to live this life of entrepreneur, a businesswoman, whatever the case may be. She still wants to live this life because she finds the joys in this life, and maybe she could come back to the baby thing. But when she found that person who gave her what was going to come because it was constantly fearful. She was fearful. She accepted that day. She said she knew it was going to happen because I had so much fear of it that it was bound to happen. And now because it happened, she had an option. Unfortunately, sometimes, the men don't get that option to, say, hey, let's keep the baby. She's like, I'm going to cut the baby, from right there, even if he wanted the baby or not. And maybe that's the bad juju that comes along with that. But she accepted it, and she's like, okay, well, I like you, you're cool, but I don't want this baby because it takes away from my game plan, which is fun, businesswoman, make money, and whatever the case, whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. I want this life still, and I want to live this life, and this baby will get in the way, so I'm going to cut this baby off, even if you don't want, even if you want it. I'm going to do it on my own because ultimately it's my decision, blah, right? Later down the road, she wants it. Either she got to be lucky, before the age of 40, uh, or, so she still have a chance. But ultimately, Rika, she still have life and she's living it and she's loving it. And at some point, maybe replacing joy, I think that's the thing. Because at some, Rika, um, there's just things you can't control because it's life, right? And life is gonna recall and she's the one who took her choice and made it her choice to off the baby and live her life, which I think that might tell you have free will, but we're going on the positive side of free will because this side will be more or less of a she accepted, she's watching now, she's enjoying it, but she's like, I still like this and I still want this and I still recall. It's just when the day comes and we're met with that, I'm gonna uh you know do what I gotta do, and stuff like that, right? And you could and I'm thinking maybe that was always set for her to have that. and her separating herself from that recall, she's gaining free will, but she's also ignoring what's been set for her. And you could replace that with other things of to for enjoyment, for enjoyment, and that would be whatever she finds enjoyment in life, and that will replace that what a baby would do for her, and having somebody who with her by her side to have that loving family and stuff like that, right? And that because I'm trying to think now, like is fear our future? Is fear the future that in that sense, that's gonna happen, right? Could you change it? No matter what, I think in that case it's gonna happen in both cases, but I'm gonna talk about now could you change the future? In this case would be the fear of it's this Boondocks, right? This Boondocks where I forgot his name, but he's that cheesy black dude. He's like, I think he's a lawyer, and his fear was going to prison. The thought of going to prison was so entrenched in his vehicle. He feared it. The thing I'm talking about, how women fear having some women fear having the baby and stuff like that. In this case, he's like same, not you know what I mean, but the same fear where that fear is stuck into him. Like I'm afraid I might recall. I might go to prison, and then I might blah blah, blah because his fear comes from that he will go to prison and get that thing that happens, bam bam, right? That bad thing, that R word, and that's what was his fear of. He had a strong fear of it, and so he freaked out about it. In what case could that I forgot why he wasn't may, I know he was a character who was very buttoned up, and I think I think it had to do with black people too. I think he was. I forgot how that episode went because I know. I think it was like anger and fuck. I don't know. I forgot how the episode went, but just okay. We're gonna just say he's a pent up dude. He's holding his anger, and yes, he's nice and stuff like that, but inside there's rage, right? And but he's nice. He doesn't show it. But like I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna tell you right now, like one of the managers who got like, oh my god, I don't fucking like this guy. He's the one who tried to get me fired. But you could tell he's one of those people who's holding all that anger in, and he's like a trigger away from recall. But he's nice and shit like that. So you could see that in people. It's like you're holding in that shit. I know that for a fact. And I know for a fact that somebody push your button in the wrong fucking way, it could be the smallest shit, you're gonna go off because it's in you. You could see in people, and in this case, it'll be like that with him. He's nice. He's a lawyer. He's doing everything right, and he's squeaky clean, and he's not doing nothing. But he's holding that shit in because people walk over him. He's doing things too nicely. he's doing everything by the books and shit like that, and then he finally bursts where he's fucking, whatever he did to go to prison, it will take him to prison, whether it be somebody disrespecting him, walking over him, fucking he doing something finally bad and getting caught for it, and whatever the case may be. But what if you made it head on? In this case, what if he was so afraid, and the very much outcomes that could happen would be because everybody's walking on whatever, but just say if he trained to fight, and now somebody fucking steps over and like, no, you gotta chill with that. Hey, you think this shit's sweet? I come at you a different way. We no longer look. You no longer look at me like that. Now you gotta respect my space. And then this changes the trajectory of his future. No longer is he afraid of the idea. He's more than willing to accept it if it comes. And now because of that, he's willing to, go by his fighting, and this is one thing that they I forgot who said it. I was watching a clip, and it says it gives you, like, when you fight, it gives you real confidence. It doesn't give you this fake confidence, and I think that's the only thing I've learned too is, I do have this, not like, Rico. I don't have confidence in myself, but I have confidence that I walk more differently than I did before, because of just learning how to fight, and just more or less of just recall. And even when I went to a gym, I don't think I ever felt that. I think I felt this fake confidence. But when I went to, learning how to, Muay Thai, I got this real confidence, and that's some more. I think that's more different and stuff like that. And he's gonna walk with that, and no longer all those things are gonna attach to him. So some guy who would walk over him no longer is gonna walk over him, because he's like, hey yo, this guy's holding himself differently. So I'm gonna show him a little bit more respect, just because of how he's holding himself. It's a different way. It's a different way how you conduct yourself, and they're gonna see that, there's gonna be a lot of those things where it would have attached to him. The negative things where people will walk over him, or poke his buttons, or not take him seriously. That now, that future that he feared of going to prison because of something happening, is because it was going to happen, because all these things, all these outside things were going to come and pile on him until he got enough, and he's going to do something unthinkable. But now that he's able to swat it away, now that future is no longer in play, because he took it upon himself to no longer be the person people push around. And that's how you could probably change your future, even if it's if it's um a foreseen conclusion that you're going to go that recall. Once you see it and then you change it, then you could change your future. Because I think in reality, I think people who don't like, there's people who don't give a fuck and just like on some dumb shit, and just like, carefree, don't give a fuck, say whatever the fuck they want, and they probably don't fear the aspect of prison, unlike somebody who does, who's more consciousness of that, or who's more willing not to step on people's foot and stuff like that. That uh, sometimes you allow certain things to go a little too far, and and that fear of the lawyer, it's an irrational fear, but it, it will happen just because of all the scenarios that are playing out as such, and compared to this guy who doesn't give a fuck, who probably doesn't have that same fear as him, who just exists and enjoys life the way he enjoys it, but also creates his barriers or don't give a fuck about the barriers. and won't ever see that day because they have other fears they have, and that fear isn't prison because nobody's gonna fuck around. Nobody's gonna fuck with them like they're gonna fuck with the guy, the lawyer guy, the squeaky guy who does everything right, who doesn't break no laws, and yada yada yada. Um, so I think that may be how you could change your future is if you have this irrational fear of something that might happen that would in your head will never happen, maybe it is going to happen just because of the things that are happening right now that you're not controlling, that you're not necessarily you're letting other people control. So wait a second, give me a second. I think that if you don't make those changes now, I think the thing you fear the most will come true because you won't. You're like the woman who or I keep using that woman thing. I would in this case we can use the man. In the case of the man, he continued to allow things to happen, and he finally let loose and decided to do something so heinous that it took him to prison. But if he made the change then, when he knew that, hey, I didn't like how this guy talked to me. Yes, I'm being respectful, but at the same time, he was not being respectful to me. I didn't like how he walked over my idea when I knew my idea was better than his, but I gave him seniority or because everybody likes him more better, or you know, I accidentally grabbed something from the weak car instead of just taking it. Just knowing it was an accident, I felt guilt and decided to take it back and pay for it and weak car. Um, and no matter what, he ignored it. He continued to let it happen because he wanted to be the better person. And at the end of it, he fucking let loose and just fucking did something. In this case, it would have been better if he learned how to fight. And learning how to fight, somebody stepped over his vehicle, and he's like, "No, that's not how this gonna happen." And uh, we call it that's not something I'm gonna be okay with. And they're gonna let you know that, and the guy's gonna probably come at him thinking like, "Oh, he's a coward. He's been a coward," and then he's gonna realize, "Oh, he's gonna fuck me up." Right? I think there's this guy who some fucking these guys who got do the camera shit. He went up to a building and I don't know what happened, but he's like the guy said to this bar guy, "I know jujitsu," and the guy's like, "You know jujitsu," and he just brings out a phone and he's like, I think he was a black belt, and it shows him with two other guys. He's like, "Fuck your jujitsu," and he called his bluff because he's the guy who knows jujitsu, and he's like he's ready to fucking go. He called his bluff. He knew he didn't know jujitsu. He knows jujitsu, and he's gonna fuck him up because he's a black belt, and he know damn for sure this guy wasn't gonna be something higher than him. But in that case, it'd be like that guy. It was like, "Oh, you coward! You've been a coward. I'm not scared of you." And he's gonna bring out his little phone. He's like, "I know boxing. Fuck with me," and then shit's gonna change. The dynamic's gonna change, and no longer is he gonna allow shit to slide, as we folks would say, uh, and and that's how he changes his future. And no longer that idea, as I said, no longer that idea comes, no longer that idea brings fear into him because now he changes it, and that's the negative side, right? Positive side would be the baby, Negative side would be prison time. And I guess in this case for him, with the gang member, Johnny Chang, I believe his name was. Shit, I forgot his last name. I know his first name is Johnny. Um, he went there until he finally found Christianity, and maybe he needed to live through that because maybe he needed that experience for them to see it. So no matter what Christianity was going to be in his life, it's just more or less of at one point would it have been? Would it be on his deathbed where he prayed to God saying, "Hey, sorry, accept me," or would it have been when he found it? Recall, or should it have been earlier in his life, but he ignored it because the thought of that change was so drastic because he was all bad, and he said it too. He's like, if he would, because it was a good question. It's a question you always hear, but it was a fucking fantastic question, which was, what would your 12-year-old what would your 12-year-old think about you now? I don't know how old he is, but he's something. He's like, yeah, it's a good question. He's like, chances are I wouldn't have no respect or care because that's some scary shit people would do or whatever the case may be, and that doing something that drastically would scare him, but because he's so on his path that doing that something that drastic would be scary than going to this path, which was more even though shit's more scarier but more familiar for him. And I think that's what it is. I think religion is for the woo woo. I think, as I said, with science and the phenomenon, uh, you just if it doesn't like aliens for scientists, is it possible there's life on other people on other planets? They'll say yes, definitely. Is there intelligent life? They will say there's no proof, and until we have proof, it's for the conspiracy nuts. It's for the woo woo. It's for the people who want to believe this. And in this case, I think that's what religion is. Religion is, yeah, you could listen to your gut, yeah, you could listen to your mind, yes, you could do all this, but is it God speaking to you, or is it you going crazy? And you're like, no, every time I listened to my gut, it said it went right. Every time I saw fear, I adjusted, I made the change, and I no longer fear that day. And they're like, yeah, yeah, but that could just be luck. That could be whatever the case may be. It could be God. You might not know it. It might be God that you might be talking to. You might not know it. He might be recall, but you never were in contact with God, and all these things were by your gut feeling, what your heart was feeling, what your mind was telling you, what your instinct was, leading you, what your fear was telling you, and what your fear from the future was telling you for in the past. I think that's, oh my god, that's so fucking, oh, I think that's what it is. I think that whole fear in the future thing is so fucking amazing when you think about it. Because I've heard it before where there's women like, yeah, she never wanted a baby, like now she has a baby, now she's on fucking, get all snarky and shit because this woman who never wanted a baby now has a baby, and she had two paths to take: either kill the baby or keep the baby. Well, there's multiple paths. One of the more direct path is kill the baby. The other path is get in a relationship, bad relationship, and recall, or go in a good relationship, and have a flourishing life with this person and this newborn, and and it's constantly that fear that you constantly meet, You're going to constantly meet that fear. And I think that fear is that change. And are you comfortable with that? And if you're scared to meet that change, either or, you're gonna run from it, and then guess what? You're gonna pick the guy. Here's the thing they said about relationships, right? They said the spark. They say the spark. Um, when you go on a date, they're like, oh, I didn't have the spark, or that that we call, and they say that's a negative feeling because they said that that spark uh brings up something that brings out an emotion. In that case, you're gonna be like, oh, you know, he did something, and I got that spark, and while realizing this spark that he did was probably winked at you or whatever the fuck he did, that we call was from past bad relationships that you continue to follow, and then and then when you go on a date with some random guy, some other guy who doesn't give you that, but just like you enjoy the food. He doesn't he doesn't he's respectful. He doesn't push the envelope. He does everything right. It just there's no spark. It's just bland, and you're like, I don't know. I don't like that. I don't get the spark. I didn't get that. And even though that's something we all live by and say that's a good thing, well, we call it live by, and that's a good thing. In reality, it's a bad thing. It could. Like, I'm not sure if it's a entirely bad thing, but um because it could have been a bad thing, but there's adjustments people make. People change for the better of their lovers, and so yeah, that could have been a bad wake up, but you hit right on the fucking jackpot. Sorry, on the wake up, and this guy did the right things and did the right moves to make sure this person's happy. And yes, you got the spark, but while realizing you also got a good person who made the change. Where sometimes you get somebody who's very bland, and they don't do nothing for you but give you nothing but positivity, but not the spark. And you are more willing to stay away from that because there's nothing there. But in reality, probably you need to see that through. And what do you get from there? And maybe it's nothing but good things, but never the excitement. And are you willing to? And that's the negative side of, are you okay with this person treating you every way right, but it's never exciting? He's loyal, he's all this recall, but it's never exciting. You never get that spark, you never recall. He just treats you good. He makes sure you're all, everything, but you can't you can't settle without that spark, and you need that, and so you fuck it up. You may blame it on him for whatever fuck reason, but you will do it, and you're gonna look at the bad person and stuff like that. And stuff like that. I think I don't know where I was going with that, but it was necessary. I know that it was necessary. I just think that the idea is so cool. That fear is your future telling you there's going to be a change. Either you accept it or you change it, and you gotta change it now. And whatever the case may be, you need to do it. And how you gotta do it is you gotta figure out the possible income outcomes of getting to that horrible place. Whereas um the guy who's a lawyer from Boondocks, it would be learning how to fight, and doing this would essentially. So for him, he's like, oh, I have this irrational fear of going to prison because of stuff like this, right? And it's like, so how can you avoid it? What is it that makes you feel like that's gonna happen? And therapists will probably figure out like, hey, you're letting people walk over you, you're not liking it, and you're accepting it because you think it's the way you should be called. But at some point, you gotta stand up for yourself so that these people don't walk over you. And maybe you need to learn how to fight because it does give you a certain outlook on life, and it gives you this vehicle, And because this is one of the better we call, guess what? That future no longer happens because of this. Or maybe the case maybe it's not fire, maybe it's fucking meditation, whatever. Just say meditation is 10%, finance 50%, uh both brings it up to 60 whatever percent. Other shit you need to figure it out to make sure to avoid that outcome. It will avoid it once you do that. And I think that's cool. I think that's cool. You could probably change your future. I think your future is telling you this change is going to happen. No, this change is, if you don't make the change, this is going to happen. The thing you fear, that your irrational fear, it's going to happen if you don't make the change. And I okay, and I think that's it. I think now I'm rambling, but I think the woo woo is religion. Religion, the woo woos, the gut feeling, the irrational fears, the intuition, the out of body experience, the all these little woo woo shit that's not scientifically proven. Uh, Religion gives it that, whereas science, like, there's no aliens. Like, technically there's no they're technically aliens, but not the aliens you're talking about. We call, or so it's like there's aliens, but not the aliens you want. Yeah, if we're talking about aliens, it's these aliens you're talking about. In this sense, religion is like the woo woo you're talking about. It's this God. It's God. Wherever you think that's happening, your body's doing, no, it's God. That's what's happening. So I think woo woo religion is for the woo woos. No, woo woo religion is for woo woos. Woo woo, no religion. Either way, that's what I'm gonna say. That's it. I think that's fucking cool. Religion, and that's it. Also, that watch that fucking episode. That thing was, it was powerful. I think that guy, like, crazy how everything happened the way it happened, and I think that's a great, like, campaign for Christianity. Like, this guy, no matter what, found it, and it just did nothing but give him good, and continues to give him good because he allowed it to take the wheel. In my case, I think that's the woo woo disguise in religion. That's the title. Woo woo disguise in religion. Thank you. Bye.